like to announce that the Kate Daly Show is marked safe from being called a Russian agent. Today, the show starts now.
50 years ago, the last congressional hearings into MK Ultra took place just a short walk from here in the Dirksen Senate office building. At those hearings, convened in August and September of 1977, representatives of the CIA told Congress and the American people that its 25-year effort to control human behavior had been a colossal failure. I believe the agency misled Congress in 1977 when it characterized MK Ultra as a failure. My name is Tom O'Neill, and in 1999, I accepted a magazine assignment to write a story about murders committed by a group of hippies called the Manson family.
Because as we get into this, we want people to make sure that you're not just somebody with a wacky idea.
Right.
Okay, you come with some science to you. What is the official reason for the collapse of the World Trade Center towers?
Well, we're told that the planes hit the buildings and there was an explosion and a fire, and about an hour and a half later, in the case of the North Tower, the buildings collapsed due to structural weakening due to the fires. Mm-hmm. The problem is that we don't have large gradual deformations associated with collapses, and fires in high-rises have never brought down a steel frame high-rise building at all.
Yes, my name is Gail McCrae.
And you were a nurse during COVID?
I was.
So which area are we going to start at? Why don't you just start telling us what you saw as a nurse? You've heard a lot of these hospital protocol
Yes.
killings.
Well, I think one of the important things about my situation is that I was working in the Bay Area of California, where we had one of the most compliant populations in the country. So we were compliant with not just the lockdowns and the masking, but also the COVID injections. So in my community, when COVID was first announced and they locked down the hospitals and they stopped the elective surgeries, our hospital completely emptied out. And this was when I really first saw that we were being lied to.
People who work with government agencies like the CIA know the power of Hollywood entertainment and use it for control. Psychological operations, PSYOPs for short, have their own divisions in the U.S. military and are used by agencies to manipulate what you know.
One nation under fraud. Completely visible, with lying and spying for all. The Kate Daly Show starts now.
All right. Welcome. Kate Daly Show. So glad to have you on board today, and really appreciate you. By the way, the 5 ebooks that I wrote are on sale for one price, $34. You can go to katetalks.myshopify.com, go grab them. And I do have a great guest today. You're going to love this. And just by the way I want to start this out today is to let everybody know, the show might be ending in a few months. We can't afford to keep the show going because why? Because we tell the truth. Because I'm here to tell you of all the media corruption, and I can tell you loads and loads and loads about the media because I've been in it for 16 years. And I can tell you that it's highly corrupt and on both sides of the aisle. And there's just so much disinformation and misinformation. And so it's very, very hard to tell the truth, and it's very hard to keep going. And so I'll tell you, on the flip side of that, my guest, Patrick Byrne, has been talking about government. And the same thing with just plain old government, just our government plus intelligence, and talking about how he was a part of being a national agent, an intelligence agent, and then also CEO of Overstock. And that's what he is very, very well known for as well. And so, of course, welcome, Patrick Byrne. How are you?
Kate, good to be on again. Thank you.
I know, your second visit. I love it. So I just wanted to say that your latest book, My Greatest Entrepreneurial Success, Disrupting the Deep State, and the docuseries, The Enemy Within, you actually can find on Amazon. So, and I've watched The Enemy Within, and let me just tell you, there's a lot of info in this show, a lot of info that you're going to want to absorb and probably kind of rewind in parts as you're explaining on top of this in this documentary docuseries, kind of like what happened to you along the way. And so you were very, very vocal about being an asset, still are. And so it's kind of interesting because most people do not get vocal about their asset days. And so what was your what made you speak out, Patrick?
Well, yeah, I absolutely thought that this was going to go to my grave with me.
Mhm.
I had actually arranged things that maybe 50 years after I was gone, the story could come out. But things happened. Things happened. I was ended up being used in what really was the soft coup started in 2015.
Mhm.
And I was used in it. I didn't quite understand. There were some things that didn't make sense, but I thought I was being used in a normal kind of assignment. And I put the pieces together and belatedly. And
Mhm.
then when 2020 happened,
Mhm.
I, well, I'll put it this way. When the Durham report came out, General Flynn called me the next morning at 7:01, which
Mhm.
he does whenever he's really angry. And his wife is saying, hey, you can't call anyone at 7 in the morning. But he called me at 7:01 and said, Patrick, I spent all night reading the book, the Durham Commission report. It's all a cover up. It's time for you to come public. You know, your Republic's hanging by a thread. It could already be lost. If we got a chance, we're making your story we're coming clean with your story. You sit down and write your story.
Mhm.
And he knew I had been a government asset, and so I sat and wrote the story. And the truth is, I was in the middle of it. It's not a theory when I say there was a coup going on to overthrow the U.S. government. I was part of it. I worked directly on the couple of the assignments in question. My handlers were reporting directly to Comey and Brennan, I was told, and it was all being done at the personal request of Obama. So I was right in the middle of their early attempts to overthrow the government. So it seemed like at some point, you're sworn to secrecy, and there's like a 15-year crime for every felony, for every secret I reveal.
Right.
But at some point, you got to think for yourself. We're going through a coup. I was used in a coup. And no, I'm not going to keep that a secret. I say to them, I hear they're very angry at me. But they broke our deal first. They used me in a soft coup. So all bets are off.
Right.
I still am not trying to hurt them. I've tried to make clear that what I'm coming public about is very constrained,
Mhm.
and it's relevant to what's going on today. There's no reason for me to go public and do
Mhm.
sensational stuff about everything. But the stuff that has to do with what's going on today, I've come clean about.
Your life in general, like being the Overstock, the billionaire CEO. And I loved Overstock. I started buying from you guys back in the day when you guys started. And yeah, from down in, I think it was Salt Lake, right?
Yep.
And so
Did it come on time? Was it good quality?
it was actually, I miss it greatly. And so, so as a person that did this and then came out as a national, like an intelligence asset, how many people do you think do that in this country that we would just know as this business person, but actually they're assets? What do you think?
Well, I'm not unique in that case. I do know that there are others who do it. I know that eventually I was told that you have a really unique relationship with the government. A lot, I don't want to overstate it. Most of it much of it was academic. And it was very flattering that the government would sort of contact me and
Mhm.
say, look, we
Right.
want you to come to a certain address in a
Uh-huh.
month and do a PowerPoint, share your thoughts on this subject you've been talking about.
Right.
And I show up, and there might be 60, might be 120 federal people across the bureaucracy.
Mhm.
I come in, I give my talk, I leave, and that's all and that was always very flattering. I had opportunities to work on things abroad that had to do with peace, and that was kind of my thing,
Right.
where there were moments.
Trouble.
I think there's more people doing a little bit, devoting a
Mhm.
little part of their lives. At some point, this became quite a big part of my life. I'm not married, never had children, and never been married. So this is really what I did instead of having a private life. At some point, some years it felt like Overstock was my cover job. Not literally. They did
Yeah.
not give it
Right.
me. I had to do all that myself.
Yeah.
But I was so busy on the stuff they wanted me to do. It kind of felt like being the CEO was just a cover job as I was doing their will. It's a very unusual
Yeah.
situation to be in you end up to be a puppet on a chain. I don't know. You end up having to really trust them. That's why I'm kind of as mad at them as they are, surely at me, because I've reached the point where I really trusted them and they misused me.
Yeah.
I did reach the point. I'm sorry, I'm giving you a longer answer than you wanted.
I love it. I know. Go.
Well, why it's germane is in 2006, somebody took me out for lunch and said, "You've done such a nice job for us in these sort of vanilla assignments. We'd like, in a white area of the government, we'd like to use you in some, there's a cell that would like to take control of you and use you in some more high-speed adventures if you're willing." I said, sure. That woman emerged about 7 years later as John Brennan. John Brennan had two female proteges. This was one of them. So I think that since 06 forward, I was actually being used by John Brennan. I never heard his name until about 2013.
Gotcha.
But so I know a lot of secrets that I'm not supposed to know. And I was used in a whole bunch of assignments in those years. And then around 2010, 2011, I got told that Obama had signed off on me being one of a very small number of national intelligence assets. And I started taking a lot of assignments from the National Security Council itself. People on the council tasking me to go to foreign lands. And generally it's more like a professor would do than I'm not killing anyone. I'm not stealing secrets.
And an agent. Yeah.
But eventually that's what happened. I was frequently told this is really a unique relationship, Patrick, that we have you sort of doing some of the things you're doing.
Well, you had a photographic memory and they loved that, right? And then also everything was probably compartmentalized, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I didn't. You're a puppet on a chain. You don't know. And the thing is, I started guessing I was in the middle of something corrupt around 2010, 2011. But when you ask questions, they tell you, look, you're in this compartment. It may not make sense to you from this compartment, but if you knew the whole picture, you would know the whole picture. What they didn't know, and there's this other dimension to this, I mean, revealed in the book and in the movie, is that I really had an Uber assignment. Should I explain that, or is this going to?
Yes, please. No, please do.
That in 2005, I was in this big fight with Wall Street, and the Senate Judiciary Committee brought me in and started to get to know me and explain what I discovered about Wall Street. And after a couple meetings, they were convinced I was right about this crime on Wall Street. But they started asking me, what's happening in DC when you show this to the FBI, when you show this to the SEC, when you talk to different kinds. And they started using me to spy on other parts of the government. In fact, they told me that, Patrick, we are the ultimate bulwark protecting the Constitution and the Senate Judiciary Committee. And we can investigate anything we want in the United States, and no one gets to tell us that there are lines for us. We can investigate anything we want. And so they used me for a year meeting. They had me at their meeting with the government and kind of getting my ass kicked in different corners of the government, but coming back and explaining to them who I thought was honest, who was dishonest, who was in on it, et cetera. This all was Wall Street shenanigans. And after about a year and a half of that, they called me in, and there was the chairman, a guy named Arlen Specter, who was a lifelong Democrat, who had a stint as a Republican and then switched back to Democrat, along with Kit Bond, who was the chair of the Intelligence Committee, and others. And they said, and they were aware of all these weird relationships I had, which is why I was sort of getting these requests. And they gave me this Uber assignment. And I'll never forget this, in September of 06, where they said, late September, where they said, we're writing this letter. They said there's some kind of corrupt force trying to take over the US government, and we can't stop it. It's our job to stop it, but we can't stop it. And they went on describing it, and it matched exactly what I'd been saying about the corruption. And I finally said, I know, this is what I'm saying. This is what, because I've been saying it publicly. I said, what are you going to do? How are you going to stop this? And they said, we're going to stop it because we have you, and you're going to stop it. You're going to spend your life working, figuring out how to defeat this. And we may not be senators when you succeed. We may not be alive when you succeed, but this is how you're going to spend your life, Patrick. The country needs you to do this. And this hasn't been, and here's a letter we're going to write, and it's going to be in a file, in a safe the rest of your life here in DC. Right. And it says you can't be prosecuted. in the United States of America.
Mhm.
And they let me read this letter, and they said, this has not been done since World War II. And we're an American. There was concern over German sympathizers in the government. And an American businessman was asked to become a German sympathizer and go to work and try to sniff the others out. And he was given a letter in a safe, and this letter is going to be sitting in the safe the rest of your life. So the whole time that Brennan was pulling me in, and I was and so I was deliberately doing dirtier and dirtier things for them. And they were probably testing me to find out where my limit was. And I was deliberately, just like if you were going to infiltrate a mafia, you're going to do what they want. You're going to do what they want.
Gain their trust.
Until you get to the middle of what you're supposed to be getting to. I'd say, some dirtier and dirtier things for them until we got to the point of 2015, which is in 2016, where they had me setting up the Russian collusion hoax, dating this lovely young Russian woman. And
you didn't know you were doing that. You didn't know you were setting it up, did you?
No, I thought I was doing legitimate counterintelligence work for them at that point. And then they had me bribe Hillary Clinton, and I thought I was doing legitimate,
something good,
legitimate. But it was after that. It was January 2016 that everything changed for me. I successfully bribed her. I guess it was January 14th. It was a Thursday. I never was face to face with her. I was behind the scenes and pulling strings and making it all happen. And the bribe occurred. And then I was immediately told I had to forget it. And then a couple of weeks later, they explained the big picture. And the big picture was that Patrick, at this point,
snow globe,
and that they were getting Brennan and Comey and Biden and Obama wanted Hillary Clinton in a snow globe that they could shake up anytime they wanted. And I had actually bribed her to get her to step into the snow globe. So she was going to be president for 8 years, and nothing's going to change that. But the whole time she's president, she's going to be owned by Barack Obama. That's when I knew that things were.
Did you already suspect her of being that person, though? I had always suspected her of actually being Bill's handler. So I'd always suspected her of being somebody that they could shake. And so were they trying to get you to do the bribe to see how far you would go? I mean, was it needed? Because I always thought she was definitely part of all of that.
She was. They were getting the upper hand on her. They were getting the upper hand on her by this. It was a nice, clean, crisp bribe, probably recorded on video. And they were getting the upper hand on her by doing this. They would own her. There's always been a love-hate thing between the Clintons and Obamas. And especially since 2008 was supposed to be her first coronation, and Obama took it from her, but then he made her Secretary of State. But there's always been this love-hate thing. So he was trying to set it up so she would succeed him, but then he would own her.
He would run the presidency for the next 2 decades.
Well, it would have been her, and then it would have been Michelle, is what I was told.
Yeah. Okay.
Would have been her, and then it would have been Michelle. And that would have given us 24 years of Barack Obama. His term, Hillary's term, and then Michelle's. There'd be nothing left of our country.
Yeah. So all of this was going on, the Russian hoax, all of this stuff, and you were kind of figuring out that you were possibly being used in all of this. You were under 2020 hits, election fraud, and everyone knew that the election fraud had happened. If there's a soul on earth that doesn't get that, Biden only got 5 or 6% of his own party's vote back in 2016. So everybody thought he was a joke. But when that happened, you were trying to tell people about election fraud, right? Because I think we've had it for a long time. But obviously now it's front and center, so everyone can see it at this point, right? All the way down through America, correct?
Well, I had been learning about election fraud just coincidentally the previous 2 months. I've been brought back in. Right. I left Overstock, went public on TV, and then fled the country. I thought I'd be killed.
Yeah.
Instead, a couple months later, they started pulling me back in and demanding I come back. And I actually got a message that you have to come back. We can kill you wherever you are, Byrne. Doesn't matter that you're hiding out in this little village in Indonesia. And you got to come back. I said, look, I'm going to be killed if I come back. Give me some sign that a federal person is going to take responsibility. I'm not going to be killed. And I got a picture, a photo, a week later of William Barr sitting at his desk with a Washington monument behind him, holding up that day's Washington Post. So I knew it was correct, and giving me a thumbs up to come back.
Okay.
And so I came back and I was put to work on another assignment, and then COVID hit. But as we got through COVID, I was put to work on an anti-cartel activity. In the midst of dealing with these anti-cartel people, there's a lot of cybersecurity involved in fighting the cartel and human trafficking. And a couple of those people, just as a hobby, I'm talking about August, September 2024, 2020, as a hobby, they were studying election fraud. And they were telling me all about how it worked and how these machines traced back to Venezuela, a bunch of stuff that sounded crazy. And I wasn't really paying attention to. What I was thinking is, we're going to get through this election. Trump was clearly going to win. And then we're going to have I'm going to have time. I'll go back and see some people at the NSA or something, and I'll start pulling people into this conversation about election fraud. Instead, I wake up on the morning of November 4th and see what happened. So they've been teaching me about election fraud and having me read up about election scandals that had occurred in places like Ghana and Iraq and Ukraine. And they all had certain
Venezuela.
Well, they all had certain things that, that F for fraud we see. They all had that. They shut down counting in the middle of the night. There's always a different reason. And then when they wake up in the morning, there's been this big change.
Yes.
That's what they were. And so I was alert to all this and just planning on going and seeing people in Washington after the election to tell them, do you realize that there's this? And instead I wake up on November 4th and we saw it here, and we saw it in the six swing states that had one big county. And I realized, oh shoot, this just happened to us. So that's really, I was not anticipating it happening to our country.
Right.
I was just learning about it to go and tell some other people in DC. And then I woke up and it had happened to us.
So why do you think Trump ran again if he knew that the fraud, they were capable of doing this, where they tried to talk the whole nation into Biden being the most popular man on earth, even above George Washington, and for the win, that 81 million people actually voted for King Dingling. So why do you think Trump ran again if he already knew that, if he already knew they could do it?
Trump, about this 2020, you mean?
Yeah, well, when he ran again in 2024, why do you think he ran again if he already knew they could take over the election and try to convince people that when you fell asleep, all the numbers changed?
Well, if he didn't run, he was going to end up in his only way out of this was to run. He would have gone, they would have Bolsonaro'd him. He would be in prison, his fortune confiscated. He'd be in a jail cell with Bolsonaro. So he had to give it his best shot. He was 79. I can't imagine he really wanted to get out there and run again. And secondly, as far as we can tell, what they can do is, without leaving traces and without any way that, in a way that defeats an audit, they can shift votes 6 or 7% on the day of the election. So if you have, he knew that he hoped he made it too big to rig. Now we think that what they did, they did everything. So I've spent all this time with election people who steal elections, and I've learned how they do it. They have a smorgasbord of 15 techniques. 14 of them are on the ground. It's all the things we've been hearing about. But the 15th technique is they have this computer center back in Belgrade, Serbia, a data center. They jam things through. They can change. So the Democrats did their normal stuff in 2024. The patriotic Americans, with our on-the-ground efforts, constrained that. The Democrats didn't push too hard because they were counting on this being jammed through from Belgrade. I don't know if you've heard the story, what really happened on Election Day. Have you come across that yet?
No.
Well, it's out. I've revealed it recently in a couple of interviews. A guy named Gary Byrne has written a book called Stolen Elections about a CIA guy. That what actually happened on Election Day was that Belgrade, Serbia office got smoked in an offensive cyber attack we had all the information necessary. We were bringing it by August 2024 to the government, to the Congress. But what a bunch of weak sisters they were. Everyone was afraid.
Always. Yeah.
Jim Jordan, the whole Freedom Caucus got briefed. They hid under their desks. They didn't. They said they were convinced, but they said it's too radioactive. We won't. After the election, we'll look into it. That was like August, September. My partner, I was hiding out overseas. I was literally DHS domestic extremist #1. I was hiding out overseas, and my partner was taken in. My two partners, Gary and Martine, were taken into Mar-a-Lago in early October 2024. And they spent 3 days showing what we had, and everyone was shocked. And Martine was sent out to meet Elon. And Elon spent a day on it and even had his technicians get on a Zoom call with a bunch of Venezuelan technicians I had who had built the systems that were assembled over in Switzerland. And Elon became convinced we were correct. And he said, we're screwed. There's no way to stop this. And there was two senators who were useful, Senator Ron Johnson and Senator Mark Wayne Mullen. Mark Wayne Mullen, do you know who that is?
I don't. I know Johnson, but I don't know Mullen.
Mark Wayne Mullen's a Cherokee. I love this part of the story. He's a Cherokee Indian from Oklahoma. He was an MMA fighter, and he was a plumber, and he built a $10 million plumbing business and sold it, became a senator. But our country was saved by a Cherokee Indian. Because he took Martine to Mar-a-Lago, then to Elon, and when Elon said this is true and there's no way to stop it, I don't see a way to stop it. The senator told him, no, if you vouch for this to Trump, this can be neutralized. Elon jumped on a jet and went up to Pennsylvania and began that afternoon. Do you remember when Elon, about 10 days before the election, went to Butler, PA, met with Trump and began campaigning and saying stuff like, if we don't win, it's the end of civilization? It was the afternoon. He had spent 24 hours with my guy, Martine, and he'd become convinced we were right. And he went up to Trump and said, this is all true. And it was neutralized. Martine was sent into the DOD Cyber Command, and things were turned over, and a legal government effort was undertaken without informing the administration, where they smoked this Belgrade, Serbia office, and there was no offense. They were not able to conduct the hack that they had intended to conduct. And that's the only reason we had a fair-ish election in 2024.
Okay. So now that you're looking at election fraud, and they can tabulate the numbers when they're sending the numbers up on the backside of that software, right? The numbers can be depleted, they can get some gain, they can be completely manipulated. So is this and how long have they been doing this in your estimation?
Well, one of the most dramatic moments of my life was I had all these 15 Venezuelan technologists in a safe house in Switzerland, and General Michael Flynn came over to see them. This was August of 2024, and he came over and met them and was briefed for about 90 minutes till he was convinced. And he's a technologist himself. He's a fabulous mind, and after about 90 minutes, he's convinced. He was about to leave, and I said, before the general leaves, why don't you tell him how much this has gone on? And one of the Venezuelans gulped, and he said, General, we've been manipulating elections for 20 years in 72 nations. And for just a second, I saw Flynn. I've never seen him look, he just sagged. I felt so sorry for him, because I know how he thinks. We've spent 5 years together, 6, 7 years now. I'm sure he was thinking, I spent 35 years abroad defending this country, doing crazy stuff. I saw thousands of Americans killed, and they came at us on a vector we had not anticipated. So they say they've done it in 20 years in 72 nations. The whole history of the West has been altered. China is ultimately the chairman of the board of this effort. The front men are Venezuela and Cuba, but it's a Chinese operation, and they have changed the narrative arc of the West so that we have crashed into a bridge abutment. That was through their meddling from Xi'an, China, was ultimately pulling the strings. So that's the truth of what's happened. It's really the greatest crime in American history, the greatest assault on America since 1776. It's funny, I was saying this stuff 2 years ago. I now see President Trump is literally using these words like, this has really been the greatest attack on America since 1776.
So I've always thought that it was our CIA, our intelligence, that was the origin of COVID, not China. And I always thought it was our government who used the hanging Chad story to develop software that they implemented in 2004. So what do you say to that? What do you say to my belief that our government was the one that did both of these in origin? What do you think?
I think that there's an element within the CIA, at the top of the CIA, you need to understand it's all deep state, but it's different flavors of deep state. There's one flavor that is traitorous. I think from their point of view, it works like this. 10 years ago, I was brought to actually an undersecretary's office in America. And he said, Patrick, there's two groups in the American government. One, this is say 2016, maybe 2015. He said, one group thinks that if we don't get our act together within 10 years, we're going to be overthrown by China. We'll be a vassal state and of China. And if we don't get our act together and figure out how to stop it. The other group thinks it's already too late. I think that group that thought it was too late went out and brokered their separate peace. It's a little bit like in Athens, when Athens was finally defeated by Sparta. There were 30 families in Athens who said to the Spartans, instead of you trying to rule Athens, put us in charge and we'll keep this place in order. It's called the Age of the 30 Tyrants. It only lasted 8 months and then they were overthrown. But I think there was a group in America, in the CIA and elsewhere, that were making their separate peace with China and thought it was too late. I think that's what really happened. But they do share a vision of globalism. They all think, even Pompeo, who I think is a bad guy, but Pompeo came out a couple of years ago and said there's not a person on the 7th floor of the CIA who believes in the constitutional republic anymore. Some people wanted to make that deal with China. Some people wanted to go with a globalist system that could stand up to China. But what they all agree is that there ought to be some sort of global power that's now running things. Either that, some of them think it's the WEF and George Soros and Davos and so forth, and the other thinks it's China.
Okay. And then also you were told at one time that there was no rule of law, and this shocked you when you were told by this person. Who told you that? I can't remember.
John Ratcliffe. I was saying, I'm just going to go public, because when Ratcliffe, I brought my story to John Ratcliffe. This is why John Ratcliffe and I aren't going to be sending each other Christmas cards. He was a congressman on Nunes's staff. And when I finally put the last pieces together, when I watched, I'll never forget that night, so there'd been a bunch of, anyway, when I put the last piece together and realized I am in the middle of a coup, I flew to DC, I went to Nunes, was put in touch with Radcliffe, and this other SOCOM guy, and I briefed them. I told them my story, and they said, well, we're going to subpoena you. So I went home, waited for the subpoena. It never came. I went back 3 months later. I said, what's going on? They said, well, they gave me some legal nonsense about why they couldn't subpoena me. And I said, well, then I'm just going public. And Radcliffe said, look, Patrick, this is early November 2018. He said, Patrick, there's no rule of law in this country. If you go public, it's not going to do anything. You have to wait. Jeff Sessions has just resigned. There's going to be a new attorney general appointed. It may be me. Wait until there's an attorney general, and then we'll bring you in and we'll hit the ground running, because we already have this story. So when people say, why do you 17 months into Trump's first term, I was talking to the right people, explaining, and they sat on their hands. So I just don't trust John Ratcliffe. I think John Ratcliffe is compromised, is just not, or is weak. Trump has these, lawyers all think that they're smarter than everybody.
Right.
And they can do everything. And they are the worst people to have as executives. Lawyers should be lawyers. They should be advising an executive, but you can't put them in charge of anything. All they do is they write memos to each other. They don't know how to get anything done. So that might be it, or it might be that Radcliffe was compromised, but he did nothing. We had the whole Russia hoax 17 months into Trump's first term. I was out there explaining the whole Russia hoax. I was saying, you can put me under oath in front of Congress. I'll name all the names. This has all been fabricated. I was part of manufacturing it. And they all backed down. So,
well, and poof, it went away in 2021. No one even talked about it in the press. But the entire first term, it was talked about and took up a lot of time and effort, right? Within the presidency, the concentration on the Russian hoax.
Yeah,
right?
well, that was it was a manufactured just in order to derail Trump's term.
Okay. The book is My Greatest Entrepreneurial Success, Disrupting the Deep State.
It's not a book. It's not a book. It's a name of a speech I gave.
Yes.
A PowerPoint. It's not a book.
Yes, yes. And of course, the docuseries, The Enemy Within, on Amazon, you can get more of the details of everything that he's talking about there, because it really is in depth. I mean, you go through kind of your whole process of what you were thinking and feeling through all those years.
Well, Flynn believes it's going to be a matter of, Flynn is so smart. He learned the whole story and he stewed on it for a month. And then he said, for this is going to be the key that unlocks history. Patrick, you were at the center of it all. Write the book in all the detail you can. And so I explained exactly what I was thinking at each stage and what I was learning and how it changed. There's like 8 or 9, we counted once, there's 8 or 9 twists and hard twists and turns in the book. So he said that history needs you to write that if we survive this, it's going to be studied for 100 years.
I know you only have a few minutes left, but I wanted to know your perception now in 2026. What is the mix, the percentage mix, do you think, of white hats to black hats in the CIA? In all the intelligences, actually.
Well, Bill Pulte knocked out. I think it's more gone our way. I think Bill Pulte took out a lot of the really bad actors, but I think that it's institutional at this point. People, the lower levels are better, but the lower levels have been selected and hired by the bad players. So it's going to take a real rotor-rooter to get this fixed.
So as far as the presidency goes, what's your take now as far as the presidency in general? I mean, all selected? Because wouldn't you have to be on board with what was going on to some degree if you were selected as president? Or do you think somebody rogue can get in?
Well, I think Trump was rogue. I think there is a faction of deep state, if you want to call it, who support Trump and don't want to see our country overthrown. And it's not just the president. I think at the congressional levels and throughout, and certainly the judiciary, you have to be on board with certain things to rise to a certain point. I think everybody on the DC district court I don't think you make that court unless they have something on you. So I think there's a lot of blackmail. There's a lot of people who don't get the big picture, and they thought that it's okay to just do a little bit of corruption when asked. But no, you can look, Trump shows that it's possible to beat this. I hope Michael Flynn runs. Flynn, I like Rubio, I like Cruz, but Michael Flynn is in a class by himself in my mind. And he's the guy who could, I think that might kill him though, unfortunately, before he ever could take office. But to me, he's the solution. He knows how this all works and he's the solution.
Yeah. And how's your health, by the way?
Well, I had cancer for the 4th time. They took out the lower half of my left lung. Wow. You hear this light cough.
Yeah. Right.
I'm 6 weeks out, but I'm 7 weeks out.
You're doing what you can do. Yeah.
What you do. I've lived this way for, it's been 40 years. Had 119. This was surgery 119. It's gone on for 40 years. Wow. I feel like I'm climbing a cliff and I keep sliding down.
That's amazing.
But it's okay.
Oh my gosh. Well, good luck with all of that. And thanks for joining me as well. The Enemy Within, you can watch it. And thanks so much, Patrick, for joining me.
Thank you, Kate. Good to see you again.
Thank you. You too.
Hope you-
All right. So back here with you guys, and just wanted to get your take on everything, everything that was said. So yeah, there's so much to say about all of that. It's interesting to watch. People come out and talk about their experience, and I know that oftentimes their experience is true to them. They're explaining what they did and what happened to them, and I'm sure that things within this racket of government, because I think the entire government has been completely taken, and intelligence, I know that they pawn it off to different countries. I don't necessarily believe the origins from other countries. I do not believe COVID came from China. I don't believe that the election fraud came from China. The election fraud, if you want to go look, was originally GEMS, and it was a lawsuit in California over GEMS, and that was getting corrupt individuals out of prison to software specialists to write the software. And then kind of hold it over their heads for the rest of their lives for going back to prison if they revealed those secrets. But it was all about changing the name throughout the years. And then, of course, election fraud being very instrumental and run by the Office of Internet. So people in my position in the media don't ever say that because they're not supposed to. Just like they're not supposed to talk about Sandy Hook or 9/11 or JFK or, or any of those things. And so I'm saying it because in my research, these are the things I have found. And I do believe that people can be told things by intelligence that they believe. And I know people that have believed it when, like Army intelligence, Navy intelligence told them things, and then they did things because of what they were told because they believed it. And in actuality, it wasn't true at all. So I do think they get people to comply that way. I also think they get people to comply by, and I'm not talking about Patrick specifically. I'm just talking about in general, to comply with things because they don't know the end result. It's very compartmentalized. So I can see that portion too. And I do think a lot of people get used. A lot of people do it intentionally for profit, for gain, for power. And there's just so much of this going on that it comes and stems from our own horrific intelligence agencies. And the minute they came on the scene in 1947, think about all the things that came on the scene. We had major brainwashing. We had this very odd decade that had never been done before in the past so quickly, and that was the 60s revolution, right? And that was, I think, all by design, all implemented. We had the UFO hoax, right? We had the whole little green men UFO stories taking off. We had there were so many, the UN. We had so many things going back to 1947 when it became very public, because I think it started obviously before that with the OSS, but the CIA kind of became the agency that it did. And then that is also delved into other agencies as well. And they're all like brothers and sisters. We are truly brainwashed. And so now in 2026, here we sit with constantly blaming some other country but us. And so Patrick has his view. I have my view. We all have a different view, I'm sure. But I will say this, from my own research, that tens of thousands of hours, because I had to know myself. And this is why I'm not on the national stage anymore for talking about issues, is because I would ask too many questions. I would say too much. And that isn't liked in the media cabal. So they don't like that so much. And so that's why we're having a hard time keeping this show on for people. And this show is really more for the truly awake, the people that see such a big picture and how people are being used and so forth. And so all I have to say about that is that there are many factions within those intelligence agencies. I don't think very good I think even if you have, and I've met politicians, I've interviewed politicians at the senator level, at Congress's level, you name it. And the one thing that I have walked away with understanding is that many of them are stupid. They really are. They don't understand anything. They don't get anything. They're just kind of like dumb. And then you have ones that are truly intentional and know exactly what they're doing and are quite evil. So it's a mix. It's a healthy mix. But when you're an agent, there's only so much, right, you're going to be able to say, I would imagine. So I do think that the election fraud goes all the way down to local, goes all the way down to our local races. I think that's why your county commissioners all over the country could change it, won't change it, because there's not enough public pressure. It's apathy to, I'm just going to vote every year and get my sticker. That's what I'm going to do because it feels good. Feels like I'm a part of something. Feels like it's democracy is. They always use that word. I'm into democracy. Like how retarded is that? No, we're supposed to be a republic. We've been losing that republic. Obviously, that's hanging by a thread. But that's what we're supposed to be. And so there's so many things going on. I don't know if the country could actually heal itself until maybe it's even broken up. I don't know. I don't know how you guys feel. Time to start over. Yeah, time to start. That's a comment coming in. Yeah. Well, what would you start over with? I would start over with the Constitution. That document was divinely written, and it was done so by the pleading of men who were writing it that said, help us write this to the divine so that we can get on paper what's going to last and what's going to help us to own our government. Now that hasn't happened, but it did in the beginning, and it tried to. But evil is evil. So do I think Elon's a front man? Yes. Do I think Jeff's and Mark and Billy Boy and all of them are front men? Yes. Do I think they're all into eugenics? Yes. Do I think the intelligence anytime that you have somebody running for office or is even, and here I am a conservative, but I am telling you, even J.D. Vance, who's intelligence, who was put there by Peter Thiel, who's intelligence also, there's a problem. And no, I would never trust any of these people. And I know he mentioned Rubio and all these other, I would never trust any of these guys that have worked layers up in intelligence. I would never, ever trust anybody. So when somebody runs for office, it's kind of like Evan McMuffin, as we always called him, Evan McMullen. What a joke that guy, that little peon guy is. And I started calling out the truth on him when he was running the first time. And I said, he'll only be interested in politics when it's election time, never interested in politics beyond that. I think he had a fake family. But I look at his situation and I'm like, the newspapers here in Utah were totally on board and tried to sell him to the Utahns to get him elected. We have so many problems with the press being so bought here in Utah. Big, 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 big issue. And I know because I met with the press and I put it in their face that they were bought, and they had no answer to that in a special meeting. But let me just say that after all the research I've done, I can't walk away with ever supporting anyone with intelligence that runs for office. And you notice they all do. They all do. Not all, but many of them are propped up to run for office. Many of them, that's their job. Like they're told, you will run for office because they're basically the snow globe. He mentioned Hillary as the snow globe, where they can shake it and get them to do what they want. That's exactly why they run. That's exactly, they're propped up to do so by the deep state. So I know this is a lot of info, and I appreciated the docu-series, The Enemy Within with Patrick Byrne, because a lot was said, and you need to go through that and really pick out pieces of that to kind of see how some of the things might work, how they're done. And then I would always take a skeptical eye at everything, because that's how you kind of have to operate within the madness of this political cabal. So there's that. And sadly, and I do really appreciate you listening. And I'm always absorbing a lot of info. And actually, kind of being kind of kicked to the curb by the media. Let me just say that we're so in trouble. If you're listening still to this day to anything on TV, and if you're still listening to any host with over 1 million people listening to them, I would react in the exact same way. I would probably acknowledge that most of them, they're going to tell a lot of truth, but it's going to be mixed with disinformation. So there's that. Okay, so I wanted to kind of explain where I was at after all my research and so forth. But I did always think Hillary was, I think Hillary's kind of a lesbo, and I think she's actually Bill's handler. I think all of them have a handler. So there's that. And what more do I say? Anyway, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you. Those ebooks, 5 for just $34. So you're getting like 60% off, and that's only for 4 more days. Or 3 more days, sorry. So take advantage, go get it, support the show, support more research. I can only do research if this is supported. And it's a very, very scary time. True. See, people like the freebies that come from, say, government school and free media. They like the freebies, but with the freebies comes all of the brainwashing. So it's hard to pull people away from freebies and say, hey, if you donate every month to free freedom of speech and to media that actually is going to say what they're thinking, and actually media that thinks, because there's a lot of total dipshits in media. I've met them. Oh my gosh, we're so in trouble. Sorry, did I say that out loud? Dip craps. So anyway, I just wanted to say that for a take that is not going to be farmed out by producers to certain media, and you want to keep this on board, then help me out and donate to the show. If you're okay with just getting the freebie media that is laden with brainwashing, go for it. Me, I always like to have a different take. I always like to, when Charlie Kirk, when that whole scene went down, I can't even tell you how many people reached out. Well, what do you think? What are you researching? And from the second it came onto the scene, I was like, oh my gosh, Tyler Robinson's a patsy. And I live in the same town as Tyler Robinson. Total patsy. And by the way, this whole thing was a setup, and it was an inside job, and the security team was replaced. And I was telling that to people right off the bat. But see, you didn't hear a lot of media do that, did you? Because they wouldn't, and they couldn't. So there's a lot of walls that media get. And the higher up the food chain you go in media, the more restrictions you have on what you can say and talk about. That's the sad part. What I've learned in 16 years. The ebooks that I've written, the one on cancer, the one on AI, what's coming with AI, what happens after the job loss is really the intent of AI. Boy, digest that sentence. Okay. The intent of AI is what happens after the job loss, and you can find out what they've got in store and how they're going to do it, but also how you can help yourself get above that. That organ donation horror, the fact that they made up brain death and it's not a real thing. You name it. The Get Ready book. The Get Ready book is it's like 60 pages of the most amazing advice that I could give you after doing the show for 16 years and all the interviews and what happens when a government did collapse in a certain country and what they did and what was the most useful thing that actually would sell the most, what people had in their possession that people wanted the most. That is all in the book Get Ready. And you can get all of that, even the one on Disney, the deep dive on Disney, the origins of Disney and Hollywood. You can get all of it for $34, and that supports the research and supports the show. So if you are a friend to me in this show, please share that link so that people can be aware that those 5 ebooks, they can get them on a total steal right now. Please, because it supports me staying on the air, doing even more research. And I love research. You can't even imagine the rabbit holes I've been down. You can't even imagine. There are some I haven't even brought to air yet. I did a show on the Beatles the other day, the first half of the Beatles. And, Kate's Cancer ebook is excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that. It was a lot of work. That was a lot of work. And it's 14 pages of cliff notes on exactly what to do and what not to do. And do not go with the medical cabal. I'll tell you that. They're only going to have one answer, and it starts with a C. So the cancer ebook is well worth the $34, but you get all the other ebooks too, and all the other insights too for $34. But go to katetalks.myshopify.com. It's right on the screen, and go pick that up, and pick it up for a friend that you want to wake up. Because sometimes if they read the info and you send it to them, and it's okay, send it to them, it's fine. You're getting my permission to send it to them. But look, sometimes, like, my whole goal with that is to wake people up, to pay for more research being done in the show, but also to wake people up, because I'm on a mission for the truth. I got to meet God someday, and I'm not going to do it by saying that I went with the cabal. I'm not going to do it. So there you go. That's me. That's me in a nutshell. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you. I'll be completing my ebooks on the world population lie. Boy, is it a lie. Boy, we're being lied to about the world population. There's a reason we're being lied to about it. And it's probably about half of what they say. We're probably at like 3 billion, maybe 4. That's about it. But there's a reason that they're doing it, and they've done it for just over 100 years. So they're lying anyway, the reason that they lie. And also the 60s culture CIA approved and delivered revolution. The 1960s decade of the CIA bringing you the music, the terminology. The term teenager did not come out until the 60s. All of that, and the demolition of the family, that's where it started in the 1960s. I'm finishing that ebook as well, because that is so important to understand how diabolical these people are, and also what they're willing to do to us to bring on think about it, for 100 years, we didn't have any decade bring on as much change as the 60s did. And it wasn't because people just suddenly got angry and women suddenly got angry at cooking a dinner for their husband. No, that was not it. It came about because the 60s were brought to us by the CIA, LSD, that they were heavily into, and then brought to us the drug culture and the hippie revolution, and basically invented it. That's why it changed so much. I wish people knew that. Because if you do, then you realize how big the lies can be. In the intro clip that I played coming into the show, a nurse says, no, COVID wasn't killing people in California. It was remdesivir in a ventilator. Then we had the guy that was on a news program saying the towers could have never burned that way. There's no way in 9/11 that happened. And I'm telling you, because this is all I study, and the towers could have never fallen that way. Right? And then, of course, the first guy, Tom O'Neill, who wrote the book on the Manson murders, who said, Manson was he was working as an informant, and they utilized him, to bring on fear. We didn't have the lone gunman until the 60s. We didn't have so many things until the 60s, or the random mass shooter until the 60s. The 60s were huge in bringing on such a huge culture revolution, but it was made up. It was engineered. It was manufactured. That's what people don't understand. So I'll finish that up and get that out. And I so appreciate you guys. Thank you. And then, of course, be faithful, be fearless. Go get some Cardio Miracle. Cardio Miracle has truly been a game changer for me and my whole family. We all take it actually now, and double dose every day. It's minerals, vitamins, completely delivered to your system that helps your lymph system. I was reading a meme the other day, and it said, your lymph system, when you get cancer, it isn't like the end result of your life, like you got cancer, so therefore now we have to bring in the big guns. It's a check engine light. Cancer is just the mere check engine light for a lymph system that isn't working. Your system isn't working anymore. So what do? We go to the cabal, and we get the cabal to put poison in us, to basically take the sledgehammer to I'm not going to say fly because that's a little too simple, but to a slew of bees, let's say. Okay. So it's a sledgehammer though. And You don't need that sledgehammer. What we need to do is solve the check engine light problem, okay? The yellow light. And so we look at it as a red light. And what this is about is it's a yellow light. It's telling you there's a warning and a system problem. And the medical cabal has convinced us that cancer is, it's completely taken over. So therefore you got to go to the very worst scenario, and that is pumping your body full of 100% poison. And there's just so many lies we've been told. So anyway, I just wanted to tell you, go get the ebooks. They'll mean a lot to you because each one of them has insights that I promise you don't know, and that we brought up on the show, but the national audience doesn't get the show. So share the show as much as you can. Share the ebooks as much as you can. Go get Cardio Miracle. Cardio Miracle helps that whole lymph system, helps keep those minerals and vitamins flowing in. It's like 20 times the vegetables you're going to eat today is in those doses of Cardio Miracle. So go take it. Go to cardiomiracle.com/Kate. Yeah, there you go. Be faithful, be fearless, and I'll see you back here tomorrow.